Hey everybody, it's Bridget Murphy with Koru Canine Dog Training. I'm back again with my husband Ray, and we are very excited to introduce you to our Northern California trainer, Rich. Rich is on for the first time today, and we're going to be talking about all things mental stimulation for your dog. But first, before we dive into that topic, I just wanted to kick it over to Rich so he can introduce himself, so you can get to know him, and then we'll dive right into the topic. So everybody, meet Rich.
Hi, I'm Rich. Been with Koru for a few years now. I started out my career with dogs about 15 years ago, doing canine search and rescue here in Nevada County, California. Been all over California with search and rescue, and that's what really got me into working with dogs and having to learn how to train my own dog to do obedience and things like that for search and rescue. I also spent many years with animal control up here in Northern California and got to deal with a lot of not so nice dogs, a lot of nice ones, but a lot of ones that are very aggressive, difficult to deal with, and having to catch them and figure out how not to get injured in the process. And that just led me into what I do now is working with dogs. Typically the bigger, meaner dogs is the ones I like to work with. Just because they challenge me and make me think outside the box and figure out how to get them to take it down a notch and work with people more.
So how did you find your way to Koru?
I actually have a good friend of mine who's also in canine search and rescue, Kathy Glenwinkle, and she told me that Koru might be looking for a trainer in NorCal. So I sent in some information and that was the beginning.
I love that because, yeah, it's amazing to see. We love it when trainers bring other trainers on because it's like, we know you're going to be good people. So I love that. Now, are you still active in search and rescue?
I've actually taken a little bit of a step back just because of business. I'm trying to keep the business going good and working dogs. We still do some scent detection work with dogs, and we do some with our own dogs just to keep them going and give them something to do. But I haven't certified a new dog for a little over a year.
Which is a great segue into talking about mental stimulation. So I love that you still do work your own dogs in scent work and stuff. So why don't we, first of all, even just explain to clients what mental stimulation is, and maybe that can also lead into the myth that's out there of a tired dog is a good dog. So let's tell dog owners a little bit about what that is.
So for me, in my humble opinion, mental stimulation is as important, or at least darn close to physical stimulation or physical activity for a dog. You really need to give that dog something to do with its brain, or it could end up getting itself in trouble. The mental stimulation is just something that makes them use that little brain up there and burn some of that energy off so that they can calm down a little bit. And I find this a lot with our Malinois. I can run my dog Banner for miles, and after a quick 15-minute nap, he's ready to rock and roll again. So I do a lot of things with him to make him think about things and make him figure things out.
Yeah, so when we're talking about breed specifics, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up with the Belgian Malinois, because typically they don't make the best home pets. You know, even some people still get them. But let's start with Belgian Malinois and what it takes to actually satisfy a dog like that, a high drive working dog. And then let's go backtrack into other breeds that come into our program that you could tell have not gotten enough mental stimulation, and the owners maybe were just too focused on just the physical part.
So yeah, we're gluttons for punishment. So we have 6 Belgian Malinois. And then our other dogs are all working line dogs. So there is a difference between working and show type lines. But with the Malinois, they're very high drive dogs, similar to the Dobermans, the Rotties, German Shepherds, things like that, the Sighthounds. all of these working breeds are very athletic, very energetic dogs, but us as humans, we can't sufficiently keep up with them physically as far as going for walks and runs and things like that in most cases. So it's important to get that mental stimulation, to challenge them, to make them think things through, giving them puzzles or games or things like that, or just an activity that makes them use their brain to figure it out. And breed wise, for me, it's one of the hardest breeds I've worked with on trying to get them to calm down a little bit. Obedience is a good way to start doing some of that, but obedience and the treadmill or the slap mill, it's all, this treadmill and slap mill are going to give them that physical stimulation, but it's just not going to stimulate their brain. You work backwards into some of the other breeds. We see all kinds of breeds with Koru, and if you look at, for instance, our golden retrievers are working line, field line golden retrievers versus what would be considered a show line golden retriever. The show line still needs all of that stuff, but it doesn't need as much. It doesn't have the drive that the other dogs have. And it just really helps to figure something out, or have a trainer help you figure out a way to mentally stimulate that dog. And it's not that difficult. It's simple little things that you can do any day of the week, any time of day, that gives them something to think about or something to work out a problem or something like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of owners are really hung up on, what they should be doing for their specific dogs, and pretty much every dog that comes in our program learns the art of a structured walk. Going under a heel command, getting a release command when they're free to go pee, poop, or do whatever, but then going back under command. Just that very act of walking around twice a day, every day in a structured walk is usually enough to get most breeds kind of enough stimulation in their brain to calm down to some degree. But then when you're talking breeds like Malinois or working dogs and things like that, this is where they tend to need to have other type of breed specific needs satisfied, things like bite work or with scent detection or dock diving or you know what I mean. You'd go down the list. There's all sorts of other programs out there. I mean, what do you suggest to dog owners that may just stumble across a dog that they don't fully know the dog's genetics, but suspect there's some kind of working line in there? What are some, I guess, easy ways to start to expose them to other things that might challenge their brain a little bit more?
So what I tell our clients, one of the biggest things that we can do is get the dog to use its nose. If you can tap into that olfactory system, the scent detection system, or the nose there, you can burn a lot of mental energy. They've got a larger portion of their brain, larger than the human's portion of the brain, that's tied into processing odor. So if we can tap into that, we can utilize that to give them that mental stimulation. And that's a super easy thing to do. You can hide treats around the house. You can hide your kid around the house or your spouse, doing games like that where they have to sniff out and figure it out. Scatter feeding, using a ball pit, any of those kinds of things are really good ways to tap into their nose, other than just going for a walk and letting them sniff around. That helps, but it's not as stimulating in my experience with dogs. And that's why we do things like nose work. I've got a couple of dogs that we do narcotics detection with, just for fun, and it gives them that mental stimulation. Those are great things that you can do. And then aside from tapping into the nose, basic obedience, making them think things through, using free shaping with the obedience, letting them figure out what it is you want them to do, or how they can manipulate you into giving them what they want. Dogs are opportunistic. They want food a lot of the time. Not all of them, but a vast majority that I deal with, they love food. They love high value treats. And if I can use free shaping to get them to think they're manipulating me into giving them a treat by sitting down or going to the place cot or doing a long down or something like that. That gets them thinking on how can I manipulate this guy into giving me what I want. I know he has the cookies, but he's not giving them to me. So I'm going to start throwing out behaviors. And that gets that brain going. It gets the gears turning, and they start figuring it out. And then we use a marker to indicate that they did the right thing. And now, once they understand the marker, they can start manipulating us in their brain into going onto the cot and sitting down, and we give them some treats. And then they go on the cot and they sit, and we don't give them the treat. And now they have to start figuring out, okay, what new behavior does this guy want? Maybe if I do a down, and then we mark that and give them the treat. So now we've just taught the dog to go to the cot and sit, or go to the cot and down. And that helps us in the long run, because that's what we want them to do, is go over to your cot and lay down. And it's a process. It takes a lot of repetitions, but it's a great way to burn them out a little bit, if you will.
I love that. I am a big fan of free shaping just because of what you said. I think it's super powerful. Plus, I have 6 cats, and if I wanted, I do train my cats sometimes. But it's powerful because, like you said, it makes them think. And I think it is even a stronger way to develop an obedience command, because they've figured it out on their own, and it builds confidence and all of those things.
Can we take a second just to go over what, Rich, could you just go over what free shaping is for people who are kind of new to this thing, who just adopted a new dog and they don't fully know what to do. They're just watching videos online and trying to figure out what is free shaping exactly?
So in free shaping, I'm not giving the dog a command. I'm not saying sit. And it's kind of a tedious process in some cases, because you're standing there staring at your dog, and they're sitting there staring at you, or standing there staring at you. And they're like, I know you've got something and I want it. What do you want me to do? So I'll use the place cot, because we do that a lot with the place cot. So we put the cot down, and we may have done a little bit of luring or something like that to get them to actually step on the cot. But I do less luring than I do free shaping. So in the free shaping, I'll put the cot down, and I might have the dog on a leash so it can't go too far away if it gets bored with me. But I'll just stand there and I wait for the dog to show any interest in that cot whatsoever. So it typically starts with looking at the cot. I use a marker, which I've already taught them about before. So I typically start with a clicker. So they look at the cot, I click, and I'll drop a treat on the cot. And then to them, they show some more interest in it, and we just do more repetitions. And then instead of the next step would be, instead of just looking at the cot, you have to actively put one paw on it. I'll take that, I'll mark it and pay. And then I withhold a little bit, and then they've got to give me 2 paws. And it's a progression of getting onto the cot. Some dogs jump on the cot, no problem. But a lot of them don't know what a place cot is. Maybe the owner doesn't have one. So we just start getting them to figure out that this cot, means something to me, and it can get them what they want, which is the food. So it's just a process of letting them figure out what it is I really want. And some dogs there are some fearful dogs that it's very difficult to free shape. So then we switch gears and we get into some luring and get them into figuring out, okay, if I follow this treat in this guy's hand and I get on this cot, he releases the treat. And once we do a few luring sessions, typically we can jump into free shaping there. And free shaping is just essentially getting the dog to start giving us behaviors and figuring out which one of those behaviors is going to get them paid.
Yeah, that's a perfect description. It takes a lot of time, but it could be done the minute you get a puppy home. When the first thing they come home is, we want to start building that no free lunch policy. They need to do something to get something. And what I always tell our clients would be, think of sit as doggy please. Please, may I have that treat, my food? Please, may I have some attention? Please, can I do this? Whatever it may be, they start putting their butt down for everything. And that's when they start offering behaviors like you're talking about. So I think that's a great description on both luring and free shaping, and why it's so important. And it can be done with any dog. It's not just puppies. You know, a new dog comes home, you're trying to show them the ropes of what's happening in your home, and in that is the no free lunch policy, which is you do something to get something positive. I mean, that's just how it is.
Yeah, and I love this too. If everybody goes back and listens to the previous episode we recorded with Shane and Damien, we started talking about engagement and how important engagement is when we're talking about obedience and obviously behavior modification. So it's just kind of a natural segue into, that engagement that we need with the owner, where the dog is so intent on looking at the owner, like, what do you want me to do? Engage with the owner instead of being so externally focused. That being said, let's give some owners some advice on some fun games. What are some of your favorites and how do you play them? Let's break it down for people so they can really like take some stuff and do it in their own home environment.
Okay, so a super simple one that pretty much anyone can do is I just call it like the destruction box or destroy a box. So you can take a cereal box, shoe box, Amazon box, whatever you want. Obviously take any plastic stuff out of there, packing and whatever. Throw in some high value rewards, some high value treats, and you can either just close the box for a dog that hasn't done this before, or some light tape on it or something like that. You put it on the ground. Their nose is going to let you know, or let them know, that there's something in there they want. They can smell it. So they're going to have to figure out how they want to get this. And they just start destroying the box. But they're thinking, that's what the key is. They're thinking on, how do I get into this thing to get what I want? So tearing apart the box. And that just gives them, some fun activity to do. And the reward is they tear apart the box and they get their food. I also use another one I use that's sort of similar is I call it the ball pit. So I get a little one of those little baby pools that you can pick up at Walmart or whatever. Doesn't have to be very big. Put a bunch of empty plastic water bottles in it, or the little balls like you get at Chuck E. Cheese, and you scatter their kibble in there. And I always mix in some high value rewards for them as well to make it a little more fun. And basically they just sniff around in that ball pit and they find the food. They get their food, and they're doing that to get what they want. The benefit of that particular one of the reasons I like it is it also helps with environmental stability. So when they step onto that plastic pool, because it's not filled with water, it's slippery. So they have to deal with the stress of being on a slippery surface. Plus, if you use the empty water bottles, they make a lot of noise when you step on them. So they're desensitizing to that kind of noise. And when they're sniffing around in there, the ball or the bottles are tapping their nose, tapping their paws. A lot of dogs don't like their paws touched. So it's desensitizing them to those things. So you get the benefit of the environmental stability as well as the mental workout that they get. So those are two of the big ones that I use. And then, as I mentioned before, you can hide treats for them. And I start very slowly with that. I have someone holding the dog or on a leash or something in a fairly contained room, and let them see you hide some treats around, and then they kind of sniff around and find them. And then you can progress up into where you're actually giving the dog a search or a find it command from a different room, and then they come into that room and start sniffing around and really look for those treats. And it's kind of, I take that from my search and rescue background where we hide people, and the dog has to go out into a 100 or 200 acre area and find that 1 or 2 or 3 people that are hiding under camouflage or things like that. But you can use these, it's just super simple tricks. There's also a lot of cognitive games that you can find on Amazon or Chewy and places like that, or your local pet stores. And they make the little puzzle things that the dog has to move a door or whatever slider thing to get the treat. Those are okay to me, but I'd rather invest the money in other rewards and use things I have around the house, because the dog's going to figure that out. And pretty soon it's just a matter of slap it around a little bit, get the treats out, and they're done. But another good one is taking a towel or an old blanket and rolling it up. And as you roll it up, you're sprinkling some food and treats in there, and then tie it in a light knot and let them figure out how to undo that knot and unroll the towel and get the food that they have in there. So, and I use food a lot for that stuff, just because it's a great motivator for dogs.
I love all of that stuff. And the ball pit one, especially, I like it. Just, I mean, when I raised my puppies and we were doing sport work, we use that all the time for sport work as well. But we did an episode on socialization or exposure. So like you said, it kind of is two birds, one stone there. You know, you're not only mentally stimulating your dog with the nose work, but then they are getting that exposure to like odd objects and balance issues and things like that. So I really like that one. Let's talk to people about, we touched on breeds a little bit and working breeds. You know, we commonly see things like a border collie living in a city and it's trying to nip people's heels and that sort of thing. So let's talk about some breed specific needs, and we can lead that into potentially some behaviors that may display themselves if the dog is not getting its needs met. For example, the border collie that likes to herd people and that sort of thing. So let's break down some common breeds that we see here.
So to start on that, my first thing is always research the breed that you're interested in. I know puppies are super cute. All puppies are for the most part to me. You know, some people are drawn to other breeds, but you first of all, you need to look at the breed and research the breed you want, and is it applicable, or is it going to have a good quality of life in your setting and in your area. There are some dogs, in my opinion, that probably aren't the best dogs to have in a high rise in Los Angeles or San Francisco. Belgian Malinois might be one of those. But if you look at things like border collies, those dogs are genetically predisposed to herd animals. And that's kind of what their brain says, I need to do this. I need to go make those things, those animals, and or in some cases, those kids, go to a different room or go to a different area. And you mentioned the nipping. That's how they get a big animal to move. I think of the Australian cattle dog and bulls. They can move, you know, 1,000-pound plus bull around for the most part where they want to, and it's because they're very fast, they're aggressive, and they nip. So those kinds of breeds, they want to do some things that are not really comfortable for little kids or anybody for that matter. You don't want them biting. So it's going to take a lot more work with those kinds of breeds. So you have the herding breeds, which you could say the Shepherd and the Malinois are originally in that category. Some of the genetics have been, I don't know if you can really change that, but we breed them for different things now, the bite work, the sports, and things like that. They're predisposed to bite stuff. And then you get some of the sight hounds where they want to chase things. They want to go. And so you need to find some activity that's going to satisfy that need. And there's things like the flirt pole. We use a lunge whip for horses with a leather strap tied on the end, a light leather tug toy tied on the end. And so I've got a big, long flirt pole, and I can have a long line or in a confined area, contained area, and have the dog chasing that around and satisfy some of that prey drive that they have. Most dogs are going to have at least some level of prey drive, and that's a good way to satisfy it. I've run into dogs that do not care about the lunge whip and or the flirt pole, and so I find something else that they want to do. But biggest thing you can do is research the breed that you are interested in getting and find out what drives that dog. All dogs have some kind of drive in some kind of area. Until you get into, there are some dogs that were bred to be companion dogs and really not do a whole lot of things, but they're still going to have those instincts that say, I want to go do something. And they may start doing things that you don't want them to do, herding kids or chasing cats or something like that. That prey drive is going to be a big one. And a lot of people go back to the Malinois, they watch the TV shows and the movies and things like that, and they say, well, that is a very smart dog and it's very cute or handsome or whatever, and I want one of those dogs. And they take a lot of work. There are obviously some that are a lot less work. But unless you really know the breeder and where all the genetics come from, it's hard to tell. And a lot of people don't do that research. So you've got to figure out what it's going to take to keep that dog busy. Could be agility, could for the border collie, graded agility. Could be bite sports like you guys do with your dogs, protection work. That's great. You know, Malinois, Dobermans, Rotties, German Shepherds, they're very good at it. And it's a great way to give them that stimulation that they genetically want to go do. And it's a lot better for them to bite the sleeve than other stuff.
Yeah, so when you're talking protection dogs, I know a lot of people, want to say, I'm going to get a specific breed because I wanted to protect my family. What are some of your cautionary tales you might want to give a first-time owner of, let's just say they went to the pound and they found this cute little Rottweiler puppy? What are they in for?
Unless they do some training with it, they're in for trouble. If you want a dog to protect you, you really want to find someone who's done that kind of work, like you guys, who have done a lot of it and done high levels of it, to help you figure out, is this dog likely to be the good protector that we want? But it has to have guidance. It has to have structure. It's not like just taking the junkyard dog, the mutt, and tossing them in the junkyard at night and letting them bite anything that happens to come in. That's going to end up getting a lot of people in trouble. And that's why we see a lot of these big, powerful breed dogs in the shelters, because they start doing what they're genetically predisposed to do, and then the people can't handle it. And it takes time. It takes time and training. And those are things that a lot of people don't have the background for, the training. And a lot of people are working very hard these days to support their family, so they don't have as much time. So looking at that dog, again, research what you're looking for. And I'm all about adopting dogs from shelters and stuff, but when you go to a shelter, you just don't know what you're going to get. A lot of the times I've seen through my animal control work, a lot of those dogs in shelters are dogs that were from backyard breeders and they didn't sell, and they aren't doing the background checks on their dogs, the genetic checks on their dogs, the genetic testing on their dogs to verify that they're breeding a dog to improve the breed. And that's what we should be doing as a breeder. But that aside, you have to kind of know a little bit about what you're doing. That's what's great about Koru, is we have so many different trainers here that come from all kinds of different backgrounds. So depending on what you're looking for, if you want a protection dog, and you're in Northern California, there's like Kathy Glenwinkle and some of the other ladies over in the Bay Area are really, really good at protection. I'm not going to be your protection dog trainer. But if you want to do something that's a little on the detection side and or obedience side, I'm all for it. But you have to really engage with that dog. And Bridget, you mentioned it earlier, engagement. And that's one of the biggest things I talk to my clients about, is you have to engage with that dog, even if it's for a 15-minute training session and maybe a couple of walks during the day. And that's engagement, or at least that should be where you're engaging with that dog and satisfying some of those needs, and helping that dog understand that, oh, hey, this person provides all the stuff I want and it's cool, I'm good with it. So yeah, looking at your dog or looking at your breed that you want, that's a big thing right there.
Yeah, I was saying, when we're talking protection dogs, you got to be careful what you ask for, because if everything becomes a threat, everything's now a target. I think the pinnacle of any kind of true protection dog is control and obedience. And, any of our trainers should be able to lay that foundation. And, if we want to go specialized, and, just because a dog's a certain breed doesn't mean he'll do that work. But that being said, if you want to go into things like that and have dogs, do bite sports and stuff like that, you need to have that obedience and control. And that comes through structure. That comes through the basic stuff. There's nothing that flashy about teaching a dog a no free lunch policy, or to go to a place cot or stuff like that. But those are the key things. If you don't have that level of control in your dog, you've got no business teaching them how to bite things. That is a big thing, and I think people underestimate the level of work that needs to go into these dogs to get there, and what goes into it on the back end. And it's just not, and again, this is where we also have to focus on the breed specific requirements as far as satisfying them, because working dogs go off the rails 10 times harder and 10 times faster than other dogs when their basic needs aren't met. And I think that's something a lot of people get wrong. Is that what you see out there too?
Yeah, yeah, you nailed it on the control, and it's that foundation. And any of the Koru trainers can get that foundation built in obedience. And if you ask any of our trainers who do the bite sports, how do I get started in that? I think every one of them is going to tell you build a foundation of obedience, because that's a huge thing. You can't have a Belgian Malinois that loves to bite stuff and you have no control over it whatsoever. You have to be able to have that dog recall to you and not bite that thing. And without that control or that foundation, you're going to have a dangerous dog. And through my experience in animal control, I had a lot of dangerous dogs that I prosecuted people for because they had no control over their dog. Build the foundation, get the engagement. The more you engage with your dog, the more likely it is to call off of someone or something and come back to you. And without that, you're going to have a dangerous animal that could hurt someone and do things that you don't want it to do.
I'm really glad we're touching on this because it's not just Belgian Malinois, right? I mean, this can go down to any breed, you know, pitties and shepherds, all of it. And if an owner has, I mean, we keep calling out working breeds, but really any breed, if you don't have that base level control and this happens, and I mean, we deal with it at Koru all the time where the dog will end up in vicious and dangerous dog court, you know, it becomes a liability. So I'm really glad we're talking about that. Tell me a little bit about, do you ever have conversations with clients? There were two things that I used to tell clients is breeding will always trump breed. And we kind of touched on that a little bit, how a breeder breeds the dogs, but that we can't trump genetics. So for example, if somebody wants to have, let's just say a pit bull and take it to a dog park, something like that. Do you ever have those conversations with your clients about how we cannot trump genetics and what we can do for them?
Pretty much every dog owner that I deal with, we talk about there are certain things, certain drivers or drives that push a dog to do something and or want to do something. And the pit bull, for instance, typically they want to be the name bully, pit bull, or the bully breeds. They can be that. A lot of them are not very good with other dogs. I've met a bunch of super sweet ones, but there's always that potential genetic. Again, we're dealing with animals here. So the genetics matter. And we as trainers, we can't change genetics. We can't change what the dog wants to do. We can harness that and we can give them alternative behaviors and we can give them things to do. But yeah, you have to talk with your clients and let them know that there are certain things that these dogs are predisposed to do. I don't, you know, it could be a French bulldog or a pit bull or, you know, any of these other breeds that we've talked about, a Chihuahua, any of these little dogs or big dogs, they have certain drivers and we need to figure out what the main focus of that dog is and work with that and figure out how we want to give it those things that it can do, those behaviors that are acceptable by our standards, as opposed to, you know, chasing little kids and things like that. Because, you know, a potentially dangerous designation or a vicious designation, not only can you possibly lose your dog, but it can also be extremely expensive for you just in dealing with the dog, but also if your dog hurts someone, you know, you're dealing with medical bills and things like that. So yeah, we have those conversations with our clients a lot. And once I typically give them a little bit of information on, you know, when I read the information that our office staff collects a bunch of great information for us. So I'll read through that before I talk to the client. And then I'll give them some insights that they may or may not know about that particular breed, if there is a breed that they've listed. And then I go over that a little bit more in depth after I have, a few days or a week with the dog, where I can kind of assess it and see what's going on once it's here with me for a bit. And then I can say, hey, this is, your dog's got a predisposition to do this or this or this, and this is what we're going to do to tap into what is going to help that dog. And then we can give it the alternative behaviors, and we're always doing obedience with them.
Yeah, and this can be really difficult for a lot of dog owners, right? Because they have to honor the dog that they have, not the dog that they necessarily want. And a lot of times, if you do go rescue, you may end up with a dog that isn't, if you want to go to a cafe or a dog park or whatever the case may be, that may not be the dog that does it. So we work really hard to set clear expectations for clients. But one thing that we really like to ask client or our trainers when they come onto these talks is your why. And I love how we started this chat with, your background, but what is your why now? Like, why do you keep training dogs?
I love dogs. It's through search and rescue and through animal control. Especially through animal control, I dealt with a lot of different animals, not just dogs, not just cats, but cattle, horses, sheep, goats, wild animals. And I like working with them. I find it challenging to me, and it just gives me a sense of satisfaction for me that I'm accomplishing something. I'm not a great craftsman. I'm not an author. I'm not, I can't sing. So my internal thing says, hey, I can do this. I can build a house, or I can work with dogs, and I'm getting a little too old to build houses anymore. So I love working with dogs. It's fun. It challenges me, gives me the mental stimulation that I need to figure out, okay, what does this dog want? But I like helping owners get the dog that's going to be the dog they want, or as close as possible to the dog they want, and a dog that's going to be a good companion for them. And the training, that's why I love the board and trains, is because I can get the repetitions in. I can work with the dog multiple times a day and build that foundation. And then through the videos that we send to the owners and the training sessions we do with the dog and the owner, we can get the owner to see, okay, it's not that hard to work a dog. And Ray, you mentioned this earlier, it's not rocket science. It's just a lot of repetitions. And it can be very tedious. And a lot of people they don't want to do, or they don't have the time to do all the repetitions. You're looking at hundreds of repetitions to get a certain behavior down, in some cases, to where it's muscle memory for that dog. And I don't mind doing the tedious stuff, because I love seeing those breakthroughs. I love seeing that aha moment when a dog figures out, all I have to do is go sit on this cot, and that dude is going to give me some cookies. And to me, that's kind of fun. I love to see that. And that's a very basic little one, but also the breakthroughs with what could be considered dangerous dogs. I've had a lot of dogs that the only thing they wanted to do when I first brought them here for the first week or 2 weeks is bite me. But we figured out how we can work with this dog and deal with this dog. And then the dog can see that, oh, hey, the guy's not so scary, or I don't have to feel threatened by him, or I don't have to, run away from him, or whatever. I can engage with this person and get, some satisfaction or the things that I want. And then we can kind of transfer that to the owners and show them how they can do that. But that's my big why, is I love working with dogs, and I love helping people get the dog that they want.
Those aha moments are powerful, for sure. When you see that little light bulb go off over their head, it's just magic. Yeah. So, okay, I got to put you on the spot. Any interest in nose work group classes for Koru Canine clients?
I would love to do some nose work classes. I haven't done scent classes for a little while. I used to do a few classes around here in the Nevada County area, but I would love to do some nose work type classes or scent detection classes for clients. As long as we can get them together and I have a big enough spot, it's super fun because, again, from my background, that's my best way to get some stimulation for the dogs mentally. And it builds a lot more engagement and a better bond between that dog and that owner. I'd absolutely love to do some of those.
Okay, cool. So I think I love all of this. This is my favorite part of dog training when we talk about the games and engagement and all. So I selfishly, I love this conversation. But for all of you watching out there, if you are interested in attending Rich's group class, which you should be, this type of work is invaluable to increase your relationship with your dog. Post a comments. Let us know if you want group classes with Rich in 2025, and we will absolutely get those set up. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you learned a lot of games that you can incorporate into your home environment now to help improve your relationship with your dog, increase their mental stimulation as well. If you have any questions for us, please be sure to look us up at korucanine.com, all of the social platforms at korucanine. Please like and subscribe below, and we will see you guys back again next time.